If you've seen Byleth gameplay in Smash, you might have come across this combo. This is Byleth's up B to down air combo that, under the right circumstances, if executed correctly, will kill your opponent off the top at horrible percents. If you haven't heard of it, I can't blame you. Byleth gameplay in Smash isn't very common, and it's mostly carried by players like MKLeo, Justin, and Spargo, who is one of the best Smash Ultimate players, if not the best in the world, Viva Mexico, but he doesn't really play Byleth as far as I know. I've only seen him whip her out in certain matchups. Either way, as someone who secondaries Byleth, I've seen a lot of this combo, and I do go for it online and during weeklies when I feel like it'll work, but that's the thing, it doesn't always work. Which makes sense. I mean, consistently killing at 30 out of a frame 9 up B doesn't sound like the most balanced thing ever, and I'm sure if it was, we'd see a lot more Byleth, but just because it doesn't always work doesn't mean it's not worth going for. In fact, I'm willing to bet most of you here think this is all a losing gamble, and that it's just a string and not a true combo, and that it's just another random funny DLC thing to whip out as a mix-up. But what if I told you that it is a true combo, and that it's actually pretty much a 50-50? Alright, before I tell you when it'll work and when it won't, what even is this combo? Well, you do this, and then you do this. Up B is a great out of shield option, especially considering Byleth's lame frame data. So for this combo, I find that you get a better setup when you go for it while your opponent is in the air, for example after landing a tilt, while also tagging in a little more damage to increase the knockback. Without platforms, it is possible for it to kill, but it's not very consistent. Here's me going for it on this Pac-Man, here's me going for it again one stock later and it didn't kill, even though there was a very small difference in percentage. But this is probably just DI, I'll get to that in a bit. It's more consistent on platforms. I'm sure this, but on a platform would have killed, but if your opponent's DI sucks or they don't know how they're supposed to DI it, or they DI in as a mix-up, it can still kill in flat stages. Still, generally this is more worth going for on platforms. If you go to tournaments as Byleth, yes, this means ban FD. Keeping all this in mind, killing with downer after an up B is totally possible, but it's even easier if you avoid going for a random up B when both you and your opponent are grounded and instead catch someone in the air or combo into it with something like down tilt, up tilt, or up throw. It doesn't always have to be for a combo or a string though. The holy percents here are high 20s, low 30s if you're comboing off down tilt, and a little earlier with up tilt, 10 to 20% if you're using up throw. But if your opponent is anywhere above the mid 30s or they DI out, I'd forget it and just follow up with side B or back air unless you're sure your opponent will DI in or that they won't DI. And also because if you go for it while your opponent is above 37%, your tilts will do enough damage for the up B to switch to the spike version. Alright, so that was a surprisingly long way to describe the first part of a 2-hit combo, but I want to explain this right because there are times where your up B will pop your opponent too far away from you, for example, meaning sometimes it's best to just go for side B or back air instead. To summarize this first part, use platforms, use low percents, more consistent if you're not both grounded, and go for something else if you know your opponent DIs out. Okay, so sour spots usually mean something bad, you know, like a weak hit, but this downer just doesn't care. It's the literal strongest spike in the game, so strong that even its sour spots are amazing. In this combo, we want to land that sour spot because it sends you up. Sour spots are optimal here, unless you're at the ledge, because then, if you don't play Byleth or you're not at that level with them, it's important to learn how to jump off the up B. For those who got very excited and are watching this video with their Switch in training mode right now, you might have tried it and realized that after you land up B, you don't end up like this, you end up like this. And that's because there's a tiny window right after stepping on your opponent with up B that requires you to press jump in order to move towards your opponent while adjusting your drift. This might be the hardest part of the combo because up B to jump isn't exactly a common universal combo, but I think a few minutes in training mode should be enough for anyone to learn it as long as you're not completely new to the game. But it's that simple, you just up B and jump towards your opponent. Anyways, after you jump, you need to make sure you drift towards your opponent as much as possible because on certain characters or if your opponent doesn't DI in, just a regular jump won't be enough and you might end up getting the spike. But yeah, then you input the downer. Going for it instantly works on DI in, and on no DI you can still go for it instantly, but again make sure you adjust your drift right to hit your opponent like this. The timing might be hard at first, so if all you're trying to do is land it and figure out the specifics on DI and drifting later, stick to just jumping while drifting as close as possible and doing it instantly. I mentioned platforms and DI before, but here are some more details about all that because whiffing it puts you at a rough spot, and getting the spike is good damage, sure, but unless you're at ledge, you still end up above your opponent, and that is not always the best spot to be in, so DI. DI out, don't go for it. No DI, go for it. DI in, go for it. If this combo is so good, why would anyone DI in on Byleth, you ask? Well, DIing out an up B at ledge will just kill them. And if they're below 45%, DIing out of the basic up B to side B or back air combo means they'll get hit by the sweet spot. DIing in on Byleth up B is a good way for them to mix up your options after up B. So like I mentioned before in the intro, it's basically a 50-50. Use platforms. The closer you end up to the blast zone, the better this combo is in terms of consistency. consistency in killing. In rare cases, if you end up really high up, side B can do the job too on DI out. Still, this combo isn't completely worthless in flat stages. I do it sometimes if you have rage or your opponent will DI in, or if you're at ledge because you could land the downer spike, or going for the up throw to jump and then up B, which is not a true combo, but sometimes it works. Like with every combo, don't fish for it or your opponent will know how to DI out of it, but even on flat stages you can pull this off sometimes. Just remember that ideally you still want platforms. Finally, one trick that works regardless of platforms is the let's drop up B thing, which is still a 50-50, except you can also just get the sweet spot and spike your opponent like I mentioned before. If they DI out, you can side B or back air unless they're above 45% because they'll just get spiked. I mentioned this before, but just to keep this video a little more organized, 10 to 20 for up throw up B. If you jump before up B, it's not a true combo, but it'll kill better if it lands. High 20s, low 30s for down tilt, mid 20s for up tilt. Tilts make sure your opponent is in the air when you hit them with the up B, which sets you up differently while adding a little percent to your opponent, which will make this combo kill more consistently than it would with a raw up B while both of you are grounded. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go to my Discord server and make my loyal subscribers upset by completely robbing the game with this combo. Bye. Also, sorry if I sounded weird in this video. I went to the dentist the other day and got a huge cut on my tongue with a metal tool. It wasn't like one of those times where your dentist blames it on you because you're not flossing or whatever. Like, he actually apologized and he was like, shit man, sorry, that's gonna hurt a lot. I've been advised to speak as little as possible, but I don't know. Bye.